Hello, I'm Taya Gurkin, contributing editor to Acoustic Guitar, and I'm here with two new preamps by Headway. The EDB-2 on this side and the smaller EDM-1 on the other side. Both are designed for acoustic instruments, specifically acoustic guitars, and they vary in their feature set. So let's have a quick look at what each one has to offer. I'm going to start with the bigger EDB2. The EDB2 is the follow-up to Headway's very popular EDB-1 that came out several years ago. And it's very similar to the older unit, but it does add a couple of interesting features, including an iPod input and also the ability to select which of the two channels you are applying the EQ section to. So, speaking of two channels, one of the distinguishing features of the EDB2 is that it does include dual inputs, and it can either be in the way of 1/4 inch input for a guitar or an instrument and an XLR microphone input. They are both blended in here. You have two separate gain controls, single master control, so you can really use it as a mini mixer for two sources, whether it's a guitar pickup and an external guitar mic, or a pickup and a vocal mic. Or whichever combination of those you might be using. But one cool thing is there's also a stereo input tip ring sleeve 1/4 inch input, so you can use that if you have an internal pickup and internal mic with a stereo output directly from the guitar. You can use this box to blend your two signals. So besides blending and general preamp options, let's see what the unit has to offer. It runs either on two 9-volt batteries, which are accessible through a little compartment right here. You can also use an external power adapter, which is actually included. The unit has extensive EQ options. There's a bass, low and high mid controls, which I'm finding extremely musical. That is really dialed into what an acoustic guitar needs. Sometimes mid-range control can be an issue, and this works particularly well. There's also a presence and a treble control. I mentioned the switch that allows you to select which channel or both channels the EQ is applied to. Right now I have it on both channels. There's a phase reverse button, which again allows separate control over channel 1 and 2. There's a range button, which is really designed to sort of fine-tune the unit. They say violin, guitar, or bass, and of course you can experiment and see what works best. And you have the option of applying phantom power, 18 volts of phantom power to the XLR input. Impedance on channel 1 can be high, and they call it something high plus, as well as active. So whether you have a passive pickup with very low output in your guitar or a very powerful active system in the guitar, you can adjust the preamp to have the right kind of input. And same goes with channel 2 for the internal microphone. The unit also has a notch filter that again can be selected onto either one of the channels, and it allows you to choose the frequency and the width of the notch, and it's really highly accurate and very effective, I found. And another button just selects whether you have it on or completely off. And the unit has a on and standby switch, so you can actually mute the signal with this if you're on stage switching guitars, taking a break, or whichever way. And of course an XLR output so that the unit functions as a direct box, as well as a standard line out. So you could, for example, run the XLR to the PA, the line out to an amp that's on stage, or tuner, or whatever kind of a device. So that's in a nutshell the EDB2. Very cool unit, sort of a Swiss Army knife to on-stage preamp, small enough to fit into a lot of guitar cases, and a lot of features. Let's, before we have a listen to what it sounds like, have a quick look at the smaller EDM-1. The EDM-1 sort of answers the call for an even smaller version of the EDB2. And it runs on a single 9-volt battery. The features are somewhat reduced. There's only a 3-band EQ section on this, so instead of being split up into two separate controls, the mid-range has to just work with one button, and you also lose the presence button on the high end. But I'm told that the circuitry internally is quite similar to the bigger unit, so you should be getting the same clean sound with a smaller unit. There's a volume control, you have a mute button. Instead of having separate notch filters, there's just a single anti-feedback function with several presets for problem areas that might occur. It's a single channel preamp, so you lose the stereo operation. Regular 1/4 inch input. You can, however, have fan and power on that switch in case you have an internal mic that needs fan and power running by itself. And even though the output is only a 1/4 inch output, it is a balanced tip ring sleeve output, and Headway supplies an adapter that lets you go from this output into an XLR configuration, so you can actually use this as a direct box if so desired. The EDM-1 has a list price of $285 and sells for about $200 on the street, while the larger EDB-2 has a list price of $475 and it sells on the street for about $319, $320. Let's plug in a guitar and have a listen to what the EDB-2 sounds like. Okay, I now have the EDB-2 set up to show you a little bit how it works and how the EQ sounds on it. I've got it set up on a microphone stand, and I'm running an XLR output directly into our Fishman Loudbox 100 amplifier. I'm playing a Godin multi-act steel string with RMC pickups, and I got the EQ on the guitar set basically flat right here. So let me show you the EQ section of the EDB-2. It's really quite effective. Right now everything is flat right here. If I wanted to add in bass, a lot of bass boost and cut in there. But in a rather musical way. I find that especially with a thin body guitar like this, I might boost it just a little tiny bit. And most interestingly for me is the mid-range control here. If I dial that in a little bit too much, you might notice it gets a little honky, so I would probably dial that out a little bit. Same with the high mids here. So I've got both the lower mids and the high mids cut just a little tiny bit. The presence control. Presence is really a little bit more subtle. You might use it if you have a real sizzling sound that you want to tame a little bit. I'm going to just leave it in the center right now. And then the treble is a little bit more drastic than the presence. I might boost it just a little bit. Let's see what this overall sound sounds like. That's a rather pleasing sound coming straight from the guitar through the Headway into the Fishman amp. I really can't demonstrate the notch filter very well under these circumstances. This guitar is not very feedback prone, and I can't really turn it up in this video studio to actually create feedback. But I have used the EDB-1, the previous version of this, at quite a few gigs myself, and I have found the notch filter to be very useful when you're using a more sensitive pickup system or playing with very loud monitors. It's really quite surgical. You can get right in there, get rid of the offending frequencies without really affecting your overall tone too much. So I can vouch for the fact that it's quite effective. I really like having a mute switch. A lot of times I use a tuner pedal as a mute switch. With this, I really don't need it because I can do it right from there. So that's really all that there's to demonstrate about the EDB-2. It's a really fine sounding unit. Would be very flexible in different situations. You can run a microphone and a guitar through it. The smaller EDM-1 sounds very, very similar, perhaps a tiny little bit less headroom because it runs on a single 9-volt rather than 2 9-volt batteries, and a little bit less flexible EQ, but the basic sound is very similar, if not identical, to the larger EDB-2. So check them out. You can read the full review of both units in the print or digital editions of Acoustic Guitar magazine or online at acousticguitar.com. For Acoustic Guitar, I'm Teja Gürken.